that's also the other coin. The side of the coin is that you've got to be able to read the kid, and he's got to be coachable, and he's got to be receptive to being developed. I'm not sure what it comes down to: heart, desire, love of the game, wanting to make yourself better than what you came into the program. But you see that all the time.
And welcome to another edition of the 941 Sports Zone. I'm John Massoni, not here with John Peacock, but here with two Venice High alumni, guys that I respect a lot with their football acumen, what they know about the X's and O's, and hopefully what they know about college football coming in the 2023 season. Mr. Bill Madden over to my far left, and Mr. Mike Lay over here right in the center square. And guys, we'll get to you in a second. We're just going to recap last week's show with SNN Sports Director John Reynolds. We previewed a little bit of the area high school football teams. We had done a media day, but we really didn't predict anything and whatnot. So John, I gave John the opportunity to kind of predict a few things and what we expected from some of the schools based on their previous year performance and a little bit of what they've done in the offseason. There is actually now an offseason in high school. I'm sure you know that, Mike, and Gail, you probably watch it as well, that guys are going for different places, and it's sort of like the transfer portal in college. So
it's filtering all the way down, isn't it?
As things become prevalent on the college scene, give it a year, maybe a year, and it's happening in high school within with reason. Obviously, you don't have budgets and whatnot, but things like that they're just happening. And a lot of times it's how the governing bodies let it happen. FHSAA sort of opened this door a few years back where they said, hey, it's okay to move within your area and with no penalties and no problems and any of that stuff. So a lot has transpired since then, and it's given guys, families, I should say, free license to kind of move around.
And how's IMG kind of fit in that? Because they have a different kind of program. They're more independent, but they go out and get players all over.
So what they are totally independent of anything that happens. They play a 10-game schedule against the national play teams like St. Francis and Mater Dei and all that stuff. Yeah. They'll play us. Yeah. I say us, Venice. Yeah. And they'll do some of their stuff like that around the area. Like matter of fact, they lost to Miami Central last year, which is a public school down in Miami with a very big reputation of being good.
Well, along that point with Miami Central and a lot of the Miami teams, it kind of runs in with the 7-on-7 they get together, and then now with the freedom to go anywhere you're locked into this place and this place only. That also with the scholarships, to some private schools.
Right.
As one down in
yes. Absolutely.
As we know all too well down there.
Yeah.
Funny thing was when I went to school up in Alabama, and they had private schools galore everywhere.
Right.
And that was late 80s, early 90s, and it's actually looked like it's coming down Florida even more in that regard as well.
It had to eventually make its way here, because as it became more and more of a I don't want to say it's hard to say it's financial, but when you were able to kind of say, I want to specialize in this one thing. If you want to be a mathematician or a musician or a scientist, whatever it may be, nobody blinks. And now you say, well, I want to be a left tackle.
Right.
And that school needs a left tackle. They've sort of said, well, if that's the case, we really can't, restrict anybody from making their way, whatever their way is. And so I think that's what it came down to, and it led itself to where we are today. I think it's more so than what you are seeing currently in college football, where it seems like they're still trying to figure out a lot of things because it is a matter of money with that situation. This is a situation where it sort of is what it's going to be for a while. I think you're going to see high school football, dust is settled, things are there. Are there things that can be sort of adjusted here and there? I'm sure there will be, but I think right now you're going to see this has become a regular situation.
So if you go through spring and you're the backup quarterback and things aren't looking good for you for starting the next year,
right?
Guys are moving to a different team in the county. immediately over the summertime, correct?
Yeah. Oh, Mike,
Yeah.
you can say this.
Oh,
now.
absolutely. But go back to your point though, as far as with the dust settles, I think that with the changes that have happened from going to the district setup to the metro and the suburban and the rural, you're just throwing the pieces up and coming back down with the same players, but just you're separating the big players in different sections. How long is that going to last? Because I think it's going to change again, rightly, wrongly. I mean, I know why. I think I know why they were saying, because people were getting in, they were uncompetitive.
Right.
At what point in time do you say, hey, we've done enough, let's let it run for a good 4 or 5 years? I don't know that we've had that set for the last 10 years.
Well, I'll tell you this. So I think where you're getting at too is there are going to be the metro, the rural, the suburban, trying to give more schools opportunities to win championships, more competitive in the size of the schools and how they are constructed as far as their. But I think it's going to go further. I think what you can see in the high school level is that they're eventually going to be another hierarchy altogether. You're going to look at somebody like almost like your Premier League soccer.
Yeah. Well,
you're relegated, or you're in the Premier League.
And you're going back
you
down.
play your schedule, but when you play for a playoff situation, you're going to be designated based on your rankings in some way. So you may see like, hey, well, a traditionally 2M school is in the same playoff bracket as a 4M school because they've just got the team that could be there. And I think that's also going to apply nationally. I think you're going to be able to look at it and say, let's use St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah.
Okay. So we say use St. Thomas, and they say, well, they've been perennial power in Florida. They're traditionally a top 5 school in the state. They're traditionally a top 10 school in the country. At some point in time, they say you have the ability to now not just win a state championship, but you can compete for a national championship.
The mythical now. Yeah.
Right. And again, somebody said, well, how's it? Well, that's where the money comes in. Somebody, is going to be smart enough, be it ESPN or maybe some other sponsor like Geico, or somebody says, hey, it's the Geico whatever. And the first game is going to be it's like Buford, Georgia against St. Thomas Aquinas.
Or St. Francis the other day.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're going to play somebody.
Right.
And you're going to say, oh, that's how it's going to go. So I think that's where it may end up. And then you have the ability to kind of go up and down. You'll see that, and you'll see within those categories, you'll say, well, okay, you're not 4S, 4M. It's the elite 4s and the elite 3 and whatever it may be. So that's where it'll end up. Funny enough, though, around here you do make predictions. So when John Reynolds had picked, I'll give him a little credit on this. 3 schools that he said are going to finish 9-1.
Okay.
He picked Venice, he picked Booker, and he picked Cardinal Mooney. Well, lo and behold, last week Booker and Cardinal Mooney played each other, and Mooney went ahead and got I would call it a mild upset, because I think that the classification really sets it up. Mooney being a 1S school and Booker being a 2S school. That was probably the thing about it. But those 2 9-1s played each other in a game that obviously doesn't affect the record. But it was because it was a kickoff classic. But nonetheless, both schools showed up and did a great job. And of course, the other 9-1 school, Venice, had a pretty good showing early on for playing against Tampa Bay Tech Titans.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was pretty much last week, and John's been a guest around for us. We always appreciate him coming by. He's super into the local sports area. He's tuned into a lot of things. He's got everybody's number. They all know him, and so it's good to have him around and watch him on his Friday Football Fever on every Friday night, because that's pretty much been the bell cow as far as you run home and watch that show to see what clip they got from Francis and the Vibrant Aspect Media guys that they shouted out for them on Friday, and wherever else he can get people out there. So
absolutely.
With that, let's move on to our discussion. So basically, where I want to start at, we usually do a local segment, but because this is more of a college-based thing, we're gonna call the local and the state the same thing. We'll start talking about the schools that we know. I guess the big 5 in this area: FSU, UF, Miami, USF, and UCF. And I put them in any order of where I think they're going to be or how they're going to rank. But overall, I will say this, and I'll start with you first, Bill.
Sure.
I think overall, from about 4 years ago, the group of 5 schools in the state of Florida have been on a bit of an uptick, because there was a little point in time right there that FSU, Miami, and Florida were taking turns or collectively becoming irrelevant in the national scene. But I think now FSU has sort of poked their nose back in there, and I think everybody else is on the rise. What do you think?
Well, I long for the days back of Bobby Bowden, Steve Spurrier, Jimmy Johnson, when everybody was competitive and playing for national championships every year. That was fun, and we got spoiled a lot because it's not happening, I think, in a long time. And USF even had some good runs a couple years ago. UCF had some great runs a few years ago.
So USF was ranked as high as number 2.
Exactly.
And UCF, well, if you look at it says national champion, which I'm a grad. I'm not down with that, but that's,
I'm going to disagree with your uptick a little bit, though.
Okay.
I don't think I think Florida State is at the top of the state right now as far as talent and ability to be a national player. Miami and Florida, tough last couple of years, but Florida had back-to-back losing seasons, first time I think since maybe Charlie Pell.
Yeah, well, I mean, it had to go back maybe even before Charlie Pell.
Yeah, and we can go into them individually, but I think Florida State has the best shot at it. Miami, don't think they're a year yet. USF was abysmal last year, and UCF coming off a decent thing. The UCF is now in the Big 12. Believe that?
Right. And that's going to be the big part of our conversation when we go national about how you've got schools in Florida playing in the traditionally Big 12, which was the Texas, Oklahoma, in a big circle outside of there. Mike, how do you feel about just generally speaking, where everybody stands as far as Florida State, Florida, Miami?
I like the way it's trending, but as far as coming from a FSU fan perspective, we had the lost decade, and it was coming off such a high to such a low for such a long time. It is nice to see some continuity and some positivity, sustained positivity. Not this one up, 2 down. I do say this: that you have to be the man. You got to beat the man.
Talking about Clemson, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And they've had 7 straight over Florida State, and there's also this talk about the realignment, them wanting out of the conference. There's a good reason for that too, and I'm not being a homer on that aspect, but I know it's a lot about what you did for me lately as a fan, but the thing that Florida State did for that league when they started, I mean, it's unquestioned. Now, that's the problem is a lot of fans that are aging into the college perspective, they don't know what happened 10 years ago.
10? Almost 30 now. Yeah.
Well, they definitely brought the conference up as far as playing level and competing a more national stage. Absolutely.
They made the conference a football relevant conference.
What if they went to the SEC back in the day when they had the shot? What do you think would have happened back then?
I think the same thing would have happened. Yeah. I think that it all depends on the time, because timing's everything. You get it on a heater. When you had the steady quarterbacks coming in, you had the talent coming in, and the coaching. Bobby was Bobby. Look at the coaches back in when Spurrier came in, he changed the SEC. Yeah. It was not the same 3 yards cloud and dust, and he's the one, in my opinion, that really changed that aspect of the SEC. So I know it's jumping around a little bit.
No, it's fine.
But as far as to his point about what would have happened, I think that it would have been just like anything. They would have fit right in. They probably would have done well a couple years, and just think about if they had the playoff system back then. Hell, and any one of our teams could have had more national championships.
Well, remember the computers took over for a couple of years on the national.
That was a disaster because I mean, I get that, but the analytics on that they didn't spell out where it was going on or who was looking at playing against it. It just didn't work out at all. To a point you just made about Florida State being relevant in the SEC if they wouldn't. I believe that, and one of the reasons I believe that, and I'll go to you on this one, Bill, too. First, I should say. The one thing that bothers me about all the schools in the state of Florida, okay, is that when they go out recruiting, they recruit from the outside in, if you know what I'm saying. They go out and they say, let's go look at a tackle in Wisconsin or a D-back in Massachusetts, when they got all the talent they're ever going to need in the state of Florida.
Maybe it's overconfidence, John. Yeah, they think they can grab those guys anytime they want and go out of their realm to get that.
So do you agree that like say we got 5 schools right now? FSU's in the ACC, Florida SEC, Miami ACC, the AAC. Is that what USF?
The AAC,
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
And then Big 12. There's enough talent as far as and it doesn't have to be 5-star talent. That's the other thing I get a little caught up on. Too many with the 5 stars, but the talent in the state of Florida, that all these schools at some point in time could be conference champions, just solely based on where they are and the core of what their recruiting could be in the state of Florida. Bill, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, recruiting is key, obviously. I kind of look at it this way too. Remember back in the day, Nebraska was big.
Yeah.
They were the first big weight room people, right? And they had a huge campus. They spent all the money on the athletes, and then it kind of shifted more to Florida and speed and athletes. Florida State, Miami, Gators, incredible athletes. Now a lot of these athletes, like John mentioned before, in the Miami area, in this area, and this middle of the state, the Panhandle, they're getting plucked to other schools
yeah.
at a much higher rate than before. So it comes down to recruiting and relationships, and I think maybe they suffered from that, from the Florida schools with the changeover in the coaches and some of the bad years that we mentioned before, and continuity you mentioned before is key to kind of establish that relationship. So if you have a great recruiter, and then you can hold your guys in state. Yes, John, absolutely. There's no reason that they can't get back to where they were before or close to it. I don't think they can sustain that kind of level for a long period of time, but at least be relevant once every 2-3 years.
Yeah, I always say there's 2 other linchpins to being successful consistently. Obviously, it's recruiting. Obviously, it's the coaching as well.
Yeah.
I mean, coaching does mean a lot, and with Auburn. You win one, you got Cam Newton, you win one.
Yeah.
You're competitive when you got Jameis Winston. You compete. That has a lot to do with it. And so quarterback and coach mean a lot too. But Mike, again, I'll respond. Back in the day, all those guys that were at Florida State back in the early '90s, late '80s, they're all coming from. I don't remember a lot of guys said, "Well, he's from somewhere else."
Yeah.
It was pretty close to either Alabama, Georgia, Florida, but they weren't getting a bunch of guys from out of nowhere.
Well, and that's absolutely right. There is a lot of people that considered, I don't know if they had that star level back then as far as 2-star, 3-star. It was either a high blue chip.
Right.
It seemed to be more the phrase.
Blue chip
back
recruit. Right.
But Wadsworth, he was a walk-on.
Yeah.
Certainly not being end up going pro. There's people like that. I do think development is a big, huge thing, and you have to develop the talent you have. I don't care what stars you have.
Right.
But the other thing I think, and it was jumping off, or what he was going to say about, it's cyclical, because when we were growing up in the 70s, why our teams were not where they are now was that you heard a lot of people going to Nebraska, going to Oklahoma, going
to Texas,
somewhere
Alabama,
away from here, out to there. Now, as we got further along, and there were some changes in the programs, and Snellenberger is I would credit the first one, and to take it to that level. Bobby had gotten a foothold, and the only reason I'm using Bobby in this sense, not because I'm a homer, but that he is a long-term coach.
Sure.
But Snellenberger was the one that he put up, we're going to put a fence around these 2 counties, and we're just going to recruit. Now, when you do that, you have high talent, but you also have the reach talent that is a 1 or 2 star that not everybody knows, because they don't all travel. They see these high-rated guys, but they don't see there's so many down there.
Well, and the technology these days is just overwhelming. So there's nobody getting hidden anymore. That's for sure.
Right. The only flip side to the technology is a lot of time we get enamored with numbers and
highlights.
Yes.
And heights and weights.
Well, that's the eye test, and you see somebody that, man, that guy is that high, that wide, that fast, he slots here. And I guess it's the analytics that came to football. Analytics, I think, was popularized in baseball where it started. But And I do believe there is something to that for the long haul majority, but it's also like picking horses, that you see something that somebody else doesn't see, and you're able to develop that talent.
Well, I think that's one thing too. So so the recruiting in particular, you're absolutely right. I think everybody they're all chasing the shiny penny.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of times I think recruiting, back in the day, you'd say, I got to get myself in every cycle. I got to get 5 offensive linemen. I got to get 6 defensive linemen. You filled spots.
Right.
And guess what? Sometimes everybody wasn't going to be a 5-star.
Right.
Okay. The Tom Lemming effect is what I call it.
Yeah.
There was a guy, he put a book out. He wanted to be the Mel Kiper of college football.
Yep.
He became relevant because ESPN put him out there, and all he was doing was guessing. And he got outed for doing that. He didn't see anything.
Right.
He had a guy said, "Oh yeah, this guy's the guy, and this guy's the guy." And how many 5 stars that he said, or this guy he said, so and so is going to be the next Jim Brown. So and this was going to be this person. All these big things he said to sell his little notebook he had, all this stuff, and people got totally enamored. There was one year, using FSU as an example, when FSU was the highest had the best recruiting class in the country. They had multiple 4 or 5-star guys, but they had 3 quarterbacks. Unless there's 3 balls that I didn't know about, those they weren't going to stay. So you're judging them based on you just like were gluttonly taking everybody you could take and saying, oh, you're going to get a shot and you're going to get this chance, and then you said, look, based on what? Why would you want to go there and just be somebody's potential? 2 of them are going to go at some point in time if they're that talented. So I think that's what it's been. It's been you got to win this recruiting battle. And I get that you have to do things a certain way, but I also think that you have to look and say, gosh, I got to develop, again, a left tackle. I'm just not going to get a guy who walks in off the street from high school and he's going to fit into the SEC or the Big 12 or whatever it may be. And I think that's where things get a little bit crooked with the recruiting side of it.
So I'm sorry, just to jump in on that point real quick, is that's also the other coin, the side of the coin is that you've got to be able to read the kid, and he's got to be coachable, and he's got to be receptive to being developed. You have this willing to accept, I made it to this level, I'm good. I'm not sure what it comes down to: heart, desire, love of the game, wanting to make yourself better than what you came into the program. But you see that all the time across the different places. The number one recruit is not the number one recruit 3 years later.
No.
He might have gone somewhere else. He might have gotten an injury. More times than often, you hear stories afterwards that their heart just wasn't in it.
Wasn't prepared for it, didn't want to do it, academically ineligible.
That's the big thing
All
right
those
there.
things.
Yeah.
And I'm not treated like I was in high school. Or
Right.
I've seen it 1,000 times, actually. And I want to bring up one point, because you brought up quarterbacks early, John.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about it over the weekend a little bit. And Florida State, Jordan Travis, Heisman candidate. Sixth year.
That's
Right.
Those guys are playing are 7 years.
Well,
7th
Stetson
year now?
Bennett was like 40 years old in his 17th year, so he was definitely one of those guys.
mailman.
I want Mike to talk about his development, how he did. And then for John, Graham Mertz was named as starter at Florida, and he's wearing number 15.
Yeah.
You know what number that is in
Means
Gatorland.
something, yeah.
And why they did that, you think, and it doesn't mean anything.
I'll start there and I'll say, look, I know where Coach Napier is headed with the Graham Mertz decision. I'm not a fan of it, okay? Because the idea is that what you're telling me is that you want to manage a football game in a manner that sort of keeps it, I don't want to say, tidy.
Right.
Okay, let's keep it tidy.
Is it safe?
Yes, it's totally safe.
Right.
And Jack Miller doesn't offer anything more than that, do you think?
Well, Jack Miller was an Ohio State guy that didn't get a chance,
Okay.
and so I thought that Jack Miller was going to come in and be the next guy behind Anthony Richardson. But look, here's the deal. There was an old saying back in the day with Dean Smith when he was head coach of North Carolina. Only guy who could ever keep Michael Jordan under 20 points was Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. The only person who could keep Anthony Richardson from rushing for 1,000 and throwing for 3,000 was Billy Napier.
Yes.
Because he did things in regards to not letting him sort of go. And listen, they'll say, oh, there was this secret injury or this other thing or whatever it may have been. He wasn't catching on certain things. We couldn't run the whole offense, all these different things. I heard the other day that which was a total Homer BS line from a Gator writer. Oh, well, Florida hasn't had any receivers since Jaquez Green and it was like one of those things. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Now Dan Mullen in the transfer portal, which is recruiting. Let's face it. Okay. He had Trayvon Grimes, a 5-star that went to Ohio State for 2 minutes and then he came back on a medical hardship, and Justin Shorter from Penn State, 2 guys that were in the top 10 5-star wide receivers on the field at the same time. What do you mean you didn't have any receivers? So the idea is that you're trying to let everybody like spin them around and forget about what success you did have or what you could have done. And based on the fact that what it's going to look like this year, it's going to look like a little slow car, 30 miles an hour, not 50, 60, 70 miles an hour.
So you're thinking that definitely, or you think there's a chance it can evolve and kind of turn into something?
I think that if based on what they have 2 nice running backs, they're developing an O-line. I get all that, okay, but I also know and look at there is a snapshot already of what Graham Mertz can do, and it's just barely over 50% passer, with his fair share of interceptions, who in a similar situation. Now I'm not going to pick on Wisconsin, okay. But they have been one of the few holdouts that want to still have 900-pound linemen and run guys behind them 3 yards on a cloud of dust. Some part of that has to do with the weather that they play in, okay? A lot of that stuff. But I don't think you're looking at Graham Mertz and saying, you know what? He's going to come to Florida and he's going to open it up. He's going to show all the fancy things he could do when he was a 4-star recruit out of Kansas, okay? And I just think that the idea is that this guy's going to manage the game. I can coach him. He's going to do what I need him to do. And you know what? We've already set our expectations real low, and so was Las Vegas. 5.5 is the wins for them. So he's already said 6 is a win. 6 games is a win.
At Utah and Tennessee early, you can be tested right off the bat, right?
Cam, he's iffy. I don't know if he's gonna win.
But even with all that stuff, I'll say this. That's the point. I don't look at that situation. And again, I'm not anti Billy Napier's or Mertz. Right. I just look at it and say, as a guy who, that goes to games that you're now going to tell me it's a 4-year process to get to a guy that can maybe get us where we want to be. And my thing is, okay, I got to wait 4 years. And I compare. I'm sorry. I'm going to compare him to other coaches and other quarterbacks. The first one is Steve Spurrier, right? Yeah. Spurrier walked in. They were a 500 team, and Donald Douglas was the starting quarterback. And the 4th string guy was a guy named Shane Matthews, and he broke the SEC record. And they won the SEC and couldn't win it because they were on probation a year later.
Yep.
Nick Saban,
Alabama,
goes to Alabama.
Yeah.
Boom. 1 year, you hit your head a little bit. Next year, you lose to Florida in the SEC championship. Next year, you become the dominant team in the country. All these schools are when the real star coach, the real guy is there. Dabo didn't wait around 5 years to figure his stuff out of Clemson, did he? And he took over a program that he was on the staff that was fumbling around and couldn't with Tommy Bowden.
Right.
Bobby came from West Virginia in the 70s. And they were instantaneously better.
Jimmy Jordan, Wally Woodham.
Yeah.
No star quarterbacks, dude. But they did it. And I said, so
good.
So now, look, I could be talking about something in a few weeks. And I'm like, what do you know? I was wrong. He opened it up. Mertz was thrown all over the place to some freshman guys. I don't know. I don't think so, though.
What about FSU, though? They got the LSU and Clemson early. Tough sledding. Right
the only thing is it's in Orlando.
The LSU game, yes.
Yes, we have we.
You're allowed to say we.
I know.
Say we.
Okay.
FSU has a pretty good record against LSU, though. It is a winning record.
Last year was a win.
Hey, that's what the scoreboard read when it was went to zeros, right? It became. But it's gonna be a good game. LSU their fans travel phenomenal. I mean, they take that bar cart all across the country. Cajun and his beer.
Best tailgating ever. Baton
It's
Rouge.
phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
They start on Wednesdays. It's unbelievable. So
Their livers by Tuesday have got to be full of holes.
all right, so I'm going to take it real quick. I'm going to take a break real quick so we can get some
Yeah.
commercials in. Once again, we're here at Douglas Jeep. This loft behind me as usual. The sun is not out again tonight, another good thing because Bill would have been the next guy to get the sun in his eyes. But anyway, we appreciate Monty Jacobson and his whole staff here at Douglas Jeep for being so hospitable and letting us do our show here every week. And also want to thank when you guys get a chance to do your What's Bugging Me section of our show, Truly Nolan and their sponsorship for them helping us out there. So with that, we'll take our first break of the night and come back and we'll continue our discussion. We'll wrap up a little bit of the in-state stuff. And we'll talk a lot about what's going on nationally with some of the different things, conference realignment and all that kind of good stuff. With that, this is commercial break. We'll be back here shortly at Douglas Jeep.
What does Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram, and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
And a dealership that tackles the competition.
visit Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
Back here at the 941 Sports Zone and Douglas Jeep. Again, thanking Monty Jacobs and his crew for always being so nice to us and letting us use their chairs. And they got to stand up for an hour and a half while we do this. So
Nice rides in here too.
oh yeah, very nice. So if you're interested in getting a nice new vehicle and getting a great deal, Douglas Jeep is your spot. We were kind of talking a little bit before we got done, wrapping up a little bit of our state preview. I'll ask you guys this in order of from best to worst. Of the 5 schools. I mean, I think we're going to probably agree on 1 and 5, but where do we go for the middle? Bill, I'll let you go first.
Okay, like you said, 1 and 5. Florida State 1, USF 5, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
That's it.
I'm going with Gators 2, Miami. The USF. Wait a minute. Gators 2, Miami 3. UCF takes a dip.
Okay.
In the Big 12 as 4th.
Gotcha. Mike?
I have to say the exact same. Miami, maybe they're ahead of Florida. It would be helpful if they played each other.
Yeah.
You know, I know that they blame the SEC scheduling, whatever it may be, which we'll get into that with the conference realignment, stuff like that. We do lose rivalries, and then we've lost that rivalry. But having said that, the FSU, I'll say Florida, Miami. I'll say UCF. They might even be ahead of Miami. You know, it's going out to the Big 12. There's who's out there.
Right.
You know,
right.
It's the last dance.
The big dogs are gone.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's still some good teams in there. But
No.
Yeah, there is.
Well,
there is.
and I do like them grabbing up Utah and Colorado and the Arizona schools.
Yes.
Because the Arizona schools, a little bit of Arizona is that they get gobbled up by the California schools. They're sort of like, oh yeah, they're over there, but there's some really good football played in high school in Arizona.
Chandler.
Yeah, they got some good stuff, good things going on out there. So there's a wealth there. I will tell you this: definitely FSU first, definitely USF 5. USF's just got a lot of rebuilding to do. It's just a long, gonna be a long road. But I'm gonna go a little different. I'm gonna say UCF 2, Florida 3, Miami 4. Only because of this. UCF has, back in the day when they were in 1AA, guys would come to UCF because they didn't make it at another school and they didn't want to wait around a year to transfer. Right. They go to UCF. Well, it's almost become that way now with UCF. There's some guys that have been some high-level guys that seeing Gus Malzahn a little bit, and he's doing some things right. And before that, it was Scott Frost and it was Josh Heupel. They've had decent coaches come through there. Maybe Scott Frost might have been the.
Could you imagine if Frost was still there, right? I mean, and it carried what he was building.
Biggest mistake he made was to ever think that it was time to go to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard
how
to
could you not, though, right?
The money and the alma mater is all right there.
Yeah, but I'm going to disagree with you a little bit and say, look at the schedule, John. UCF at Boise State early.
Yeah.
At K-State early. At Oklahoma. Home against Oklahoma State. At Texas Tech.
Right.
I could see 4 losses in there real easy.
Yeah, but I will tell you this, from that point of view, yes, I believe that. But what have you done for me lately? UCF beat Florida in a bowl game, and they have been a much more competitive team. Like their losses aren't
Blowout losses.
as bad as some of Florida's losses the last couple of years.
I agree.
I mean, bowl game 2 years ago with Florida was an embarrassment, and then or actually 3 years ago, and they just didn't even show up against Oklahoma, and then you had the UCF loss, and then last year was that's the game. Now I will tell you this: I watched 5 minutes of that game because I was already disgusted, and when you have a 31-3 and it was that bad, I'm like,
Right.
you're at the very bottom of the SEC at that point.
Yeah.
You lost to Vanderbilt, you lost all those games at home, then you go out and play a bowl game and just get yourself.
I laugh because I know how
embarrassed.
bad that feeling is when your team.
Yeah.
You're like,
What do you
just
do?
disgusted.
Yeah, they don't care
What do
sometimes
you do?
at the end of the year. But one more point about UCF. A lot of defensive transfers went elsewhere. You know who the quarterback is now?
Yeah, it's
Plumlee.
yeah.
Yeah.
From Ole Miss.
Mason
Yeah,
Plum-
this is the second year.
Great runner. But they're going to outscore people in order to win. They're going to average 35 a game.
But hang on now. Let's not get carried away because you know who the coach is,
Malzahn.
and he is not one to evolve his offense.
Well,
His offense is still the same. He's had different coordinators.
Yeah, but he likes to run a lot of plays and
I
the
don't-
fast tempo. So that's why I say I think they have to score 30-some points in order to get a
Right,
winning record for the year.
yeah.
there's a lot of stress on the defense with this. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree, but wanting to do it and doing it, I mean,
Well, and that's the other part of my thing with UCF. They got some players on that can, they're definitely a Power 5 level school at this point.
yes.
And
I agree
but
with
Gus
that.
Malzahn, he can win you one you shouldn't win, and he can sure as heck lose you one you shouldn't win.
Firsthand, I know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why.
He's handled Alabama in the past. I'll give him a lot of credit for that. And he made Nick Saban change the way
Yes.
and,
Yes, he
the way
did.
they operate and
I
complain.
think he made him respect the up tempo.
Yes, and complain to the league, the officials to
Yes.
slow the game down. You're going to get people hurt, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, then who was
And I-
running
and
up and who ran the up tempo right after that?
And I will say
Exactly.
this: sometimes, a guy like Malzahn at UCF, he comes in, he maintains the sort of the energy that the school had picked up from the Scott Frost era, gets in the Big 12. So he's gonna win you some games. But now he's it's good. He's a crafty enough guy, I think, that he's gonna play all out because he's got nothing to lose. He got what, $18 million from Auburn that he didn't have to ever work again. He get whatever he got from Auburn.
It's like money doesn't matter in college
Well,
anymore.
for
right?
him it does.
Yes.
It definitely doesn't.
Absolutely.
And he's got money. He's getting paid from UCF. He can look at it and say, look, I'm not going to go out here and say like I'm not going to shy away from this. We're going to go out and run 85 plays or whatever 100 plays, whatever we're going to do it our way and have fun with it. And heck, if we come in the first year and we're kind of cutting our teeth on it, and we end up 6-6 and get in a bowl game, success.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, that's why I said why I had to put him ahead of Florida, because Florida could be 6-6 and have no signature wins, and they win the games they should win. And maybe UCF looks better than that.
All right, 12 games. Florida State, what's the record at the end?
12 games.
12 games, but what's their record at the end of the season?
Oh,
Last year they were 10-3 with a bowl win, I think.
yeah, there were. 12-0.
Why did I know that was coming?
I had to be positive.
Okay, that's mean beating Clemson
That's
once
probably,
again,
well, yes.
twice again, probably the
Yes,
championship game. Okay,
yes,
got
yes.
I say Florida State's 10-2.
it. Okay.
I'll go Florida 6-6. I'll go Miami 6-6, 5-7. I don't
Just quick on Miami, if that happens, I don't think he sees year 3.
Well, I will tell you this: he's from the area.
Oh, I know.
I think he's got a lot of credibility. He didn't, to me, he hasn't locked up like you said, put that fence around that 2 counties. I don't think he's done a great job with that in particular. He's lost on some guys.
But
that
he
shouldn't have lost
coached
on.
at FIU.
Yeah,
They're
and they were
people
0-10.
and that's why I'm saying. That's why I think that this year is probably the most important year out of all the coaches.
Yeah, he might
I
be
think he's the one that if if it doesn't go, Ruiz is not going to be happy with the money that he spent on that program.
And that's the thing that's got some sort of stink to it now with that money going around, and they're also building an on-campus stadium, so they can't lose momentum on that at all. I totally agree with you on that. And then USF, I mean, if they win a game or two, that's probably a lot to ask based on their rebuild in particular. So again, but it's always good. I mean, I'll say we as Floridians really should have higher expectations than we are right now with some of with our schools, and it's a matter of time. I'm
a little bullish on Florida than you. I'm more positive. I'm
7
and 5.
I think it's been really hard for me to get that taste out of my mouth for how that ended last year, because you'd want to see an uptick,
like Florida State.
Right. You want to see at the end of the year things going a certain way. Look, and listen, Mike Norvell, 4 or 5 years into the program, they gave him the time. He turned it around. My example of giving somebody time to learn how to be a coach and be better is Kirby Smart.
Yes.
My analogy, my comparison of Kirby Smart is that he's the coach from Waterboy who stole Henry Winkler's playbook. The bad guy.
Maybe Bobby Boucher can put on a Gator uniform.
Well, that could be the case.
Could be it.
But he said he doesn't run that play because he took Nick Saban's playbook, so to speak, went to Georgia and did not. If you remember early on with Kirby Smart, he's not a good game manager or a coach. He lost some games.
He did.
And even so he was even with how he handled some recruits. I mean, he basically lost Justin Fields because he didn't play him enough. He was just running him around. Then he put him in on a punt. When they were on the rise, and fortunately enough, he had a guy that was, like I said, I was joking. He was 27 or whatever Stetson Bennett was.
Yes.
He was there when all the guys ran away, the quarterbacks, and there was Stetson Bennett there to do the job.
Outside of Florida, though, coaches on the hot seat. What do you think about Texas A&M and your favorite coach?
Well, let's just do this. We'll go right now to the national stuff, and we'll start there with your question. What do you think about Jimbo at Texas A&M?
I think that guy has got to hit his knees on the floor and thank God every day that somebody gave him the dumbest contract in the history of the national NCAA. I mean, it is unbelievable the amount of money and it doesn't go down a lot.
Jimbo reminds me, because Jimbo's the sloppiest looking coach ever. He's got 4-year-old hats. He doesn't tuck his shirt in. He's got notes like this. He's looking at stuff like this. I said, you got to go to Jimbo's house. Like, come on and I'll use the bathroom. He's got like a $17 million check on the coffee table with a wine stain on it.
He hasn't signed it yet, though.
That's from Florida State. I mean. Jimbo, you're right.
Go back into the Mike Lay fund.
Right.
They spend enough money out
there. We're taking any offers.
But Jimbo, like I said, he's the other guy. Just when you think he's dead, he does something great.
Yeah.
He pulls off an upset or does something really great. Now look, he didn't like hearing it because he didn't want it, but Texas A&M will do whatever it takes for him to win. If he needs $46 million,
you mean he didn't like being told that he was the bag man that got him the NIL money?
He got $23 million.
Yeah.
Who do you say that?
So much enjoyed that fight with him and Saban
absolutely.
last year.
That was good. That was good stuff because
that was like watching two of the crime bosses going at it.
It's funny. Yeah, you're dirtier than me.
No, right?
Come on.
Like
you stole more money than
I know what you do.
Elon Musk versus the Facebook Mark. What's his name? Zuckerberg.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're gonna let's go. I'm gonna go with my little outline real quick. Conference realignment. It's the most prevalent story right now out there.
You and I talked about this last week, and I'm going to ask you because you both have better memories than I do at this point in my life. There was a thing that was going to be a super conference. This is when the first things about the NCAA, the people were trying to go away from the NCAA.
Yeah.
It was the ACA or AAC or something like that, and it was going to be like a 30-team conference. And in my opinion, I think that what you're seeing, that the group of 5 or Power 5, whichever one you want to call it, is now going down to what, 4, 3.5?
It's 4 big conferences, and the 4 big conferences, and the question mark: where's Notre Dame going to go?
Right.
Because if they go to the Big Ten,
if they go,
but look at the numbers of those conferences. So when you take the best out of those conferences, and it's going to go. I mean, they've already got it to this point.
Right.
It's like you're making concentrated football. Like, all right, we're getting this weak sister out of here. Now we're getting it loaded, and then you were saying earlier, somebody was saying about a good idea was having like a soccer league where you get relegated.
You get relegated. Yeah.
But my point is, I think that money drives everything, that's nothing new. And these contracts.
It's been going this route for a while, Mike. Even way back when they started, I think the SEC was one of the first to make the big move to make 14 teams.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And then I said to myself, and I talked to other people years ago, I said, okay, football is going to be this conference, basketball is going to be this conference, this conference.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't combine it anymore, which is terrible, I think, because you have affiliations with 2 or 3 different leagues in some cases.
Yep.
And you really don't know what ends up in the different sports, but the money's flowing in regardless.
But the problem with just having the basketball only and the football, and you're not in with the whole program.
Sharing of money.
Yes, is that if you have a great football program, that feeds all the other programs. That is the money driver. Now, if you have a great basketball team and you have a so-so football team, well, guess what? You better hope that that team makes the Final Four every year.
That's the ACC outside of Florida State or Clemson, because you look at them and say, oh, well, that great traditional basketball school, Duke, North Carolina, well, what's with their football teams? Well, there's not a lot of money coming in. How many people does Cameron Indoor hold? 1,000?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dink box.
Wasn't one of the main reasons Florida State and Miami came into ACC to boost up their conference?
Was absolutely right. They had to get in that. That's even Virginia Tech when they got lumped into that. So, but that's the thing. So conference realignment, we all know it is about money. It's always going to be about money. And that other conference, that other group you talked about back in the day, I was thinking about it more, and what I want to say happened, I'm relatively sure, is that the NCAA played hardball with the TV people. And so they're like, no.
Right.
We have a contract. We have this. You want to go out? Does it sound like PGA and Live? We don't want to get into that conversation. But it's like all of a sudden, now there's enough money. Now there's no Saudi money, to do it with or whatever you had. But because the TV money was the real revenue at that point. And it wasn't even where the money is at this point.
Right.
Because the NCAA also, so you got to remember, the NCAA was looking at it and saying, if that happens in football, what happens to March Madness? What happens to everything else? And I think they scared the CBSs and the ESPNs of the world and said, hey, here's what's going to happen. If you back this horse, we're done.
We're done.
And the players don't have the juice like golfers do. And I remember years ago when Oklahoma actually protested in midfield and tried to form a union for players. There was like a little movement, but it didn't go anywhere. And those guys were considered like blackballed almost.
Well, and the other part of it is that what a lot of it is why does it never really had a push for unionization? Because there's guys in the locker room saying, shut up, dude. I got $1 million that somebody gave me in a little brown bag. Don't. I'll buy you dinner.
Well, you don't need a brown bag anymore, though.
Yeah. Now they stand there with the check like they won a golf tournament.
Right.
It's like, hey, look what I got. This big check.
And speaking of that, though, the money. Okay, all these alumni are putting these bills to pay for the name, image, likeness thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, don't you think they'll get a little tired after a while and say, you know what, we're not ponying this up. This guy didn't work out. This guy didn't do well.
Well, if you're the AD or the coach, depending how it gets put together, you're the general manager. And eventually the general manager, if it's the Yankees or the Red Sox or anybody else who's got a lot of money that can do stuff back in baseball, who gets fired? The GM. You're not getting the right talent.
You got one of the biggest NIL guys in the business, an Auburn guy, right?
Got the money. Why not spend it?
Yellowwood.
Well, no, Yellowwood, Jimmy Payne.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he don't mess around.
Hey, there's plenty out there, but yes.
Yeah. No, but
not just money. I mean, other campuses
think about,
as well.
Think about all the names of campuses. I'll give you Louisville, Papa John's,
Boone Pickens.
Yeah.
Boone Pickens. He's a
God rest his
billionaire.
soul.
I've used him all the time. I'm like, if you really wanted to
Nike.
Yeah. Well, that is.
Oregon is they are the ones who developed having a slide into your therapy pool for the kids, or they had their own little like decompression chambers and whatever he's done with all his sports equipment. Absolutely, it's been these big name guys with big money that are going to toss it around. The Ruiz guy we're talking about in Miami.
Yeah,
listen. He's spending a lot of money, but he's like low on the chain as far as where the real big money is in some of these places. You don't think that they name stadiums after these guys and roads. Why is this road called Fat Guys whatever? Well, Fat Guys guy is he built that building that we're walking to. You know, And that's what it comes down to. So realignment, I think, is going to eventually shake out. I think it's where it's at. You got the Pac-4, which is left, which is Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford left, and Notre Dame. And you look at Notre Dame and you say, if I'm the ACC, okay, I look around and say, look, you're already in the conference, but let's do this. Keep your football money. Just keep it. Keep your contract with NBC. We just want to bring your name recognition to our conference, validating our football standing with you guys putting, we had you to the Florida States and the Clemsons and the Miami, all those traditionally good schools. We're relevant at that point. And then I think what they'll do is there might be a little bit, everybody says, okay, you know what, this is stupid, but they might morph into more of a regionalized thing. And I think what's going to happen is with the way the playoffs are set up with the 12-team format, that the winner, or whatever you call it, of those divisions, we'll call them, not even conferences, get the bye, and then it's the next best 8.
Well, they don't even go to. They're not going to have the conference championships with the new setups, are they?
Well, they're supposed to maintain it. That was there was too much to be lost financially for the conferences.
That's what I think they were talking about, dropping a conference game, and so they didn't have 15
right.
games.
That's kind of what I was thinking,
and again,
too.
Division II, Division III, they've been playing 14, 15 games for 20 years. So don't tell me it's because they need to study.
It's the biggest lie ever.
I know, it is.
And it's so funny, like, well, you can't do it. You're going to miss your finals,
right.
and then watching Youngstown State play Georgia Southern,
16-0 versus
14th game
15-2.
semifinal, right on the day they were both taking their finals,
Right.
in the worst weather ever, you know.
Right.
But I do think that they'll get that figured. I think that's just a matter of just logistics, and that'll happen. But again, it's what's going to come down to is that now you've got everybody lining up with their TV contracts, and you can see where everybody lands as far as the dollars and cents
Not
are concerned.
CBS and SEC, they're gone.
Yeah, I know.
How about that?
Well, because ESPN they didn't want, they were losing. They lost the Big Ten. They lost a few other things they were losing, so they needed to sort of square up and get SEC right.
I'm gonna miss that. You're so accustomed to having SEC on CBS. Or how long has the relationship been?
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Only thing I will say to you, Bill, that I being an SEC guy, obviously you are as well. I didn't like the lead-in. It was very short. Didn't have that feel to it. That kind of. It was more like, hey, guess what? Here's what's going on over here. Now let's go to Vern Lundquist, and we're ready to go.
But you had
and there's Vern.
Vern made it all good.
Yeah, he fixed
It's almost
it
as good as Corso is. I'm telling you.
No doubt.
Listen. Somebody, I hope, does not have him in the Deadpool this year, because that's going to be disrespectful.
Yeah, no doubt. Transfer portal. I know you can go on a whole show. We did it with Trey Burton. Here to stay, and that's nothing going to change. Do you think that at some point in time, the portal's going to have to be reined in a little bit, because it's just you just can't have guys popping them back and forth every time they don't like them. They got mustard on the sandwich and they order mayonnaise.
You want to go? Or
I'll go first. Yeah. I think there should be recruiting has closed the windows a little bit. It's going to require bigger staffs, which they have the money for. It's going to be recruiting almost 365 days a year. There's no days off in college sports for these guys anymore.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to change. It's just going to evolve and get bigger. But there might be a closed window where nothing can happen for a month, and then you get the shady dealings coming in. So
the only thing I don't like about it is that it's been said before, you shouldn't be able to recruit somebody off of somebody else's campus. You should commit to it, and then you go, and then you put yourself in the.
During season you can't, correct?
Right, but I mean, somebody whispering to somebody saying, "Tell your brother or tell this guy this."
He's also talking about the spring scenarios too.
Yeah.
So, and Mike, your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that they have the December recruiting early signing date.
Yep.
They have the February signing date, which is what we grew up with, and that used to be the main thing. And then you have spring ball. All right. The reason I'm saying all that, I think you should get rid of the transfer portal time frame in the sense that move it to after they've recruiting, move it after spring.
Right.
Because
I see that. I agree.
And the reason I say is because it gives these guys that to go through spring to see if they're going to win a position or be where they thought they're going to be with the team that they signed with and they stuck with. And if they don't, well, now they have the opportunity to use the portal. Now, I also think that there should be a one-time free with transfer.
Right.
I think that's what it's gone down
so
to now.
You can't transfer twice within a year, and there's only sometimes you can actually do it as well. So
and then it reverts back to the old, if you transfer,
you gotta
you got to sit out a year.
Yep.
So
yep.
But in my mind, I think that makes the most sense. To go back to you as far as with the people on the staff, I think that it is a year-round thing. You're always recruiting, but I think by putting time limits or time frames in it, that if you going to sign for the transfer portal, that you're as a staff is going to know before they do it.
Oh, you have your big board up in the back of the room. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm just saying that. So if May 1st is the transfer portal, right? I've got to know right after spring, a certain time frame, like whatever, to notify the coach.
Tell you what, though, it made it tough to almost prep for the show a little bit because, who's going where? Who's that? Oh my God, this guy's over here now. This guy's over here. Difficult.
Well,
absolutely.
Very difficult. Why would you go through spring and taking full reps, and you're a starter, and then after you end up as soon as spring's over, you come out and say, I'm leaving.
Pot of gold on the other side, I don't know.
But there's an opening here. This guy recruited me. I liked him. He was my third choice, but I like him anyway. I'm going to go.
That's a good point. Sometimes you guy recruits you, goes and upgrades to another school. He's an offensive
But why put yourself in harm's way that if you blow out your knee during freaking spring at this place and you're going to where your coach, you had a relationship, I mean, and that's not out of the question that people have sat down and protect themselves for other things. I just don't see the value of going through spring to get yourself to a transfer to somewhere where you're probably going there, like you said, for a relationship, but also you're probably going somewhere that it's going to end up being a chance for more money,
right?
Or
NIL money.
Or to showcase.
Well, that too, absolutely. All
right, so listen. So I was going to say about picking conference winners. We'll do that for our prediction segment. I'll make it easy for you, unless you have another prediction you want to make. But we'll put out there maybe a top 5, and then who you think may be the guys that those teams are going to compete for the playoffs. But I will ask you this: I know how I think it's going to look. College football in 2024. You got the playoffs starting. The conferences are going to be duly realigned at some point in time. I look at the college football, and I think that the inevitability is this. It is going to look so much like the NFL in 2024 and beyond. This transfer portal thing we're talking about, what's going to happen is, so let's just say the NIL money, it's a contract.
Yes.
Okay, you're signing a contract. It's not a big deal, whatever. But eventually what's going to happen is, if I want Bill Madden, he's the 5-star guy I want, okay, and he can be my quarterback, I'm going to say, Bill, here's the deal. If you stay for 4 years, okay, you sign this 4-year deal with me, okay, you're going to make this much money. We don't care if you're horrible or whatever, but you're staying here. There is no transfer portal. You're you're guaranteed this money, and we're going to make it Loctite, like the NFL. Guy can't just be like, la la la, I'm going to leave. We have your rights or whatever it may be. Right. I think it's going to happen that eventually it's going to be that way, because because this portal thing is going to become so you're not going to know who's playing where. Could you imagine in the NFL if we're saying, hey, Josh Allen's playing for Jacksonville now, and you're just going out and doing whatever you want to do for the next best deal? It's not sustainable. So I think college football will look a lot like the NFL as time moves on, playoff wise, contract wise, the whole deal.
I think in that respect, absolutely, John. I would like to see if they got NIL money, it's put in a trust and they can't touch it until they leave the school or they graduate or something like that.
That's not a bad idea.
But I don't think legally that would be allowed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I don't think. And now listen, don't forget, there's a lot of parents involved in this situation. So I'm not saying anything bad about the parents, but there's a lot of people who want that money.
I understand.
Contract law, though, in one state is different than in another, and that's when you're kind of going across lines that.
Well, it's definitely muddy.
Well, that's why what's going to happen is. Because they're right. What you can do in Florida is not what you can do here, not what you can do there. Yeah. They're all the states are trying to figure it all out, but it's going to take a little while.
Isn't that what's going on with Missouri? That they just passed something for high school NIL, and that's why they got that latest 5-star recruit.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So these schools that are getting their act together and making it, you're able to pay people so much, whatever. That's what's going to happen. So eventually, what'll happen is whatever the governing body is, it may not even be the NCAA. Could it be a whole new level of governing bodies? I think the conferences will push what it is, and once they're all the states and all things get in lockstep, then you'll see where the money is going to be transparent, and it's going to be for some sort of guaranteed amount of time to be there, and that could be negotiable.
Yeah, I think I do think, go back to whatever that organization was talking about, that you're going to have some kind of version of that. They're kicking the NCAA out because it's like you're kicking money over to them for what?
Well, the NCAA gave up.
I know, yeah.
When they said, okay, well, do what you got to do.
So the only thing they're using their name. They've got to make a token offering to them.
The NCAA has been inept for a better part of 30 years.
Yeah.
And they've let things happen. They're totally reactive.
Yes.
They don't proactively do anything, and they just wait for the next bad thing to happen, and they try to fix it after the fact.
And it seems like their judgment varies upon case per case, even though the same circumstances might exist. So, yeah, I don't trust them at all.
So with all the stuff we're talking about, it's great that football's back because this is leading into the season. All the stuff we're talking about is all speculation. The games start
this weekend.
Absolutely, and we know that what's going to there's going to be great football. There's going to be great games, the rivalries, and all the atmosphere of college football is going to be there. Nothing better than you go into a college football game, a great college football game does anything I've ever been to in my life, sporting event wise. And it's just fun to be around it, and I'm sure we'll all be commiserating at some point in time or upset about our teams.
Long season.
Yeah, and there'll be some high fives that you didn't expect. I'm sure of that.
Right.
All right, then with that, we'll take our next break and come back with our What's Bugging Me section. You guys get to vent about whatever you want to talk about as far as in the sports world. Or I told everybody, I said, John was mad, right, Trevor? Francis, I'm going to call you Trevor. Why do I call you Trevor? He was mad about the grocery store last week or 2 weeks ago. So anyway, you can be mad about what you want or
grocery prices.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yes,
He's bugging him. He said. I said, yeah, you're right. Everybody's
bugging him.
That.
It's killing me.
With that, we'll take our break. Come back here to Douglas Jeep for our final segment of the 941 Sports Zone.
What does Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram, and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
And the 941 Sports Zone. And guys, the very popular What's Bugging Me section, you guys get to vent a little bit about what's bothering you in regards to the college football or whatever else it is. And now we'll start at the end of the table over there with Bill Madden. Go ahead and give what's bugging
me. How much time we got?
A little bit.
Paying $10 for beer at the Rays game I went to last week, that bugged me.
I can imagine that.
It did. Did not feel good. We're all going to be going to a sports bar shortly, probably to watch a game, either Sunday or Saturday. And in Florida, it rains. And you have satellites. There's disruption, and you can't watch a game for a couple minutes at a time. Why can't they fix this? This is 2023, and it still goes out on satellite. That bugs me. And the last thing that bugs me, and you guys will appreciate this, I took the sticks out of the garage and went to a driving range last week.
Oh, God.
Haven't played in a while. I used to be okay.
Look out to your right.
What bugs me is how come I can't hit a ball that's sitting on the ground doing nothing and hit it straight? I just can't do it. So you need to get callers, John. So I get somebody here to recommend a pro to try to fix me.
You need to get somebody with some safety gear if you're 2 doors down to the right. I've seen this man firsthand. To my left, he's trying to hit a ball that way, and it is going across our feet directly to the right at a 30-degree angle.
Well, I aim 75 yards this way to get it go straight.
It is one of the best banana slices I've ever seen in my life.
Hey, but you can control a slice better than a hook, so he's a little bit ahead there.
He is. He would just be playing from the 3rd hole back to the 5th hole. I mean, eventually to come back around.
I was telling a guy the other day, I had to use a 3-wood on a par 3, 180 or 160. Just so I could reach the green with all the slices.
driver from 140.
Yeah.
I was bugging you, Mike Lay.
What's bugging me is just like everybody else around here is that they're just tired of the heat. It is.
You're outside, so you.
It's funny because I'm out, and you walk inside and you're freezing. it's maybe 75 degrees, but it's 150 degrees outside, and you walk in, you're freaking shivering. It's like, and then you go back outside, and you walk to your car, and then you're soaking wet again. And I get it, it's Florida, but God, man, it's chafing weather.
Oh, it's more than chafing weather. It's hives. It's you name it.
That's what we need a sponsor for chafing, because it's very chafing. It is heat and it's like boiling. Sometimes.
Baby powder or what?
I don't know. There was a lawsuit for that.
As you pull up on your horse,
it's a
little crescent
long
moon
dusty.
on the outhouse.
Well, before
big
the rain,
thing of baby powder in there.
It was a long dusty trail.
This is the same guy in 4 months going to be complaining how cold it is outside.
I am a complainer. I'm very topical though.
Yeah, well, but it's true. I mean, right now it's been unprecedented.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
I said today was like it's 96 degrees out, and I got the guys who work for me. They're like, "This is great."
Hey, I know, right?
It was windy.
Exactly.
That's
finally, the wind showed up, and it's like, man, I can do this. For at least another week.
All good for me. Yeah, absolutely right. So I definitely commiserate with that. It's all the things you said. Is absolutely right. My what's bugging me. It's not really the worst thing in the world, but I've been around high school football for a lot of years, and I love high school football. Man, I mean, you put me and you they got the flag going and the band's playing,
right.
And mom and dad are in the stands. It's all good. It's all good. But I sit in a seat that sometimes gives people a lot of access to me, right? And look, we all really try hard to make sure that the right number is said and the right name is said and the right everything else is done and everything's posted. Give us a little break. We're volunteers, okay? There's nobody up there who's doing anything else. Everybody's trying their best.
Right.
So parents, fans, whatever it may be, just be as patient as you can. We're it's a kickoff classic. Sometimes I don't say the name right, or somebody didn't post something right in Max Preps or whatever else it may be. We'll fix it. We'll get it right. At the end of the day, it'll all work itself out. And we're only a partial way through. We're kickoff classic only.
We haven't got to the top of the hill yet.
Yeah.
This roller coaster is getting ready to take off.
But I love it. It's great, and I appreciate the fact that they're that enthusiastic about things. But every once in a while, just pump the brakes and realize it's that my full-time job is not redoing things or
you see him in the press box. Me and Doug see him in the front gate, and half times they're happy to see you. Yeah, it's Friday night. You got it. Another half, like, are you kidding me? It's a donation.
a good story, John. You got one?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's always funny for me. Like
it could be funny.
I enjoy the fact that I got to do freshman and JV games as well. Okay.
Yes.
Mike was a freshman coach for many, many years.
Yes.
And freshman football is an extension of Pee Wee football in some ways because parents still have to drive their kids there and everything else. Inevitably, they all sit with their backs to me. And if I said your name was not Bill Madden, I said your name was Bill Maiden.
Oh God.
You see a head pop up, turn around, look at you, and I'm like, oh, that's Bill Maiden's mom. I must have said the name wrong. And all of a sudden it's like, doot, 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 doot. Knock on the window. It's Madden. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Maiden. Good to see you.
I'll try to. And now that you've got me there, I'm going to say it again wrong because that's in my brain that way. But yeah, it's fun. But again, I love everybody out there. But every once in a while, just remember we're working as hard as we can. If you see something, that's great. But remember we're volunteers. We're doing our best. All right, prediction wise, let's just go ahead and say you can give me playoff teams. You can give me your top 8, however you want to frame it. Bill, go ahead and give me what you think college football is going to look like for the top teams.
I'm gonna go kind of chalk actually.
Okay, that's fine.
I agree.
And then with maybe a surprise or two. Playoff teams. I got 3 in my head, and I'm deciding between my last 2. I'm gonna go with Michigan.
Okay.
LSU.
I got you.
USC as a
like
playoff
that
3,
one.
and then the 4th I'm gonna decide between a Big Ten and a SEC school. So we're going to say Georgia stumbles down a little bit, and Alabama makes a little bit of comeback this year and finally beats Georgia after 2 years. And so Alabama being the 4th, with Ohio State and Georgia just on the outside.
Okay. I like that. I like it a lot. Mike, what do you got?
I have Michigan, but I'm not really sold on Michigan, but I do have Ohio State. I have Clemson, Florida State. That's the 4 for the playoffs. As far as USC, I definitely think USC is pretty loaded. And who else do you need for how many is that?
That's 4.
That's 4. That's 5. That's 5.
We need 3 more.
No,
right.
that's fine. That's
Michigan did impose a 3-game penalty.
Well,
on
no,
Harbaugh
now,
today.
but
They don't play anybody the first 3
I know.
games.
But I thought that was I thought they still wanted him to do the original
Before.
penalty wasn't enough.
It was 4 was the original that the NCAA thought about, I guess, and then they
They
went away, and then they self-imposed, and now he's taken 3. So
now my picks they can change in 3 weeks.
yeah, agree.
But where I'm going to go now, I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to go Texas. I think that they are. If they're going to do anything, it's going to be now. And I think that if they get the momentum going with Arch Manning and everything else.
Yeah. Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers, he's a Heisman guy.
That is a potential minefield right there.
I like second year with USC. I think they're going to be phenomenal.
Yes.
I'm going to surprise you. I like FSU.
I did. Well, yeah, I did.
And
too.
I like it because there's a returning quarterback. Quarterback. I think Norvell's got. I think he's finally going to be on solid terra firma.
Yeah.
It always looked like he was a little bit like, "Ooh, I made a mistake." Like he was a little too much. He overthought a little bit too much there for a while. So I think he's definitely, got his stuff together.
Did I make the right move coming here?
Yeah. I'm going to say Michigan, Ohio State winner.
Yeah,
okay,
I like
because
that.
Michigan is not. I mean, they got an easy schedule, and I think that's where I look at it. Outside looking in, I got Alabama and Georgia right there as far as SEC is concerned. And
Notre Dame, Penn State, anywhere?
No, I don't like either
Not
one of
Notre
those
Dame.
schools.
Well, but the quarterback that transferred from Wake Forest, he is a good,
interesting,
yeah.
but I don't think they're there just yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to land. So I'll stay with those predictions. And guys, that's the end of the podcast.
That was too quick.
We didn't get our who's
my other
who's
prediction.
the big surprise?
My big surprise: the Jets, John's team, will go 9-8 and miss the playoffs by 1 game this year.
All right. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised because the division is tough and they play an NFC East. One of those 3 teams, Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets, are going to be out there, and they're going to be a good team that's not in the playoffs. I guarantee that. So I like it. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised. But 9-8 with on the rise, I'd take it right now if you told me that, because I know I'm a Jets fan.
Yeah, but you got
I'm
one
waiting
more
for
year.
a disaster to happen right now. Aaron Rodgers fell down in the shower. It's my life.
No, that's going to be the second time he drops back the first game and the guy bull rips around, and he just collapses. His left
his right
knee.
foot and his Achilles just exploded. Yeah, it's always the same thing. Well, guys, thank you. Bill Madden, thank you.
Thanks,
Mike Ray,
John.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right.
We're going to have you back on here for other things.
Sounds
whatever
good.
it may be. I know you guys can pick it any. We'll get some more stuff. We'll have maybe some NFL stuff down the road. So stay available.
All right.
All right. With you and that. Thank you guys for watching again. This is 941 Sports Zone. John Mastoni here. And thank you to the Vibrant Aspect Media guys and Monty Jacobs. And, of course, Truly Nolan for sponsoring What's Begging Me. We'll see you here next week from WSG.